Taz is a board-certified integrative medicine physician and the founder of the Center Spring MD medical and wellness practice. And she and I have met personally, and I can tell you out of my own experience with her that her passion for empowering women through really good information and personalized, holistic approaches within not only sexual hormones, but really a complete hormone care is really incredible. And the reason I wanted Taz on, which is something that I don't do that often, is because she has such an incredible view on how we work with hormones in every aspect of our lives, not only in menopause and beyond, but really from early on. And now is a really good time to have her on because she wrote a book, which I'm going to hold up here. Congratulations.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
It's called The Hormone Shift. And I know out of my own personal experience, there's nothing quite than when you birth your child into the world. And that is a form of a child into the world.
Very much. Very much.
And so it came out this week, and in there is some really amazing stuff that I want to talk about because these are the questions I get in every single course, on every single Zoom session, in any of my programs. We're always coming back to these issues, and I figured it's so great. I can address it from the embodiment perspective and my own personal experience, but you really have this amazing background. And so before I, just continue waxing poetically about you and the book, I wanted to at least say hello and give you a chance to say a few things.
Oh my goodness. I am just so honored to be here with you and your community. I think the world of you. You radiate, you have this amazing energy. And I think that, anything we can collaborate on is going to be amazing. So thank you for having me here. I appreciate it.
Well, thank you for coming on. And of course, you've been making the rounds talking about the book.
I have.
Yes. And also, having done that myself, I know that it's quite interesting because there's certain questions that everybody asks you, I'm assuming. And these are probably the questions that made it as chapters into the book.
Very much. Very much.
And so what I want to focus on, I think, before we go into the 5 different which I, by the way, thought was just so cool, that 5 different shifts, the names for the shifts I'll mention in a second, or you will mention. But the thing that I really wanted to focus on, because that's what I'm getting to hear on my end and in my work, and this is, going out to my community, is essentially that. And you talk about this in the book quite a bit as well, and it's even on the jacket of the book, but there is so much odd information out there, and there's so much scary information and conflicting information. And as in many issues that have to do with women in general and women's health in specific, it's very hard to differentiate between dogma, kind of almost political or just, rabid beliefs of all kinds that could, from all sides, well-meaning or not so well-meaning, commercial or, personal, but we don't actually ever get taught or given the kind of information that would allow us to make responsible choices of our own. And that's what I love about you and the book so much, is that you essentially give the education that I would have liked to have when I was a young woman. Because I remember distinctly at some point going through some medical encyclopedia, trying to figure out why things were happening in my body, and I could never figure it out. And when I started having hot flashes, I couldn't find anything about what, right? So other than a description of what happens. So Would you mind starting out by saying a bit about that and you know?
Absolutely. So, the book is very much a passion project of mine. And I'm so glad actually you opened up by speaking about exactly that, because every time you put something out there, you're opening yourself up to who knows, what everyone thinks, right? And it's been fascinating to me. This is a journey I've been on now for a while. I opened my integrative and holistic practice 15 years ago. I've seen collectively, we've seen as a team, probably 40,000 patients through our locations here in the Atlanta area. And then we built out a pretty big telehealth platform in 2020 with the pandemic. And the stories and the data and the numbers and all of this are real patient experiences. This is not something we cooked up in a research lab. This is not something that, we picked out of somewhere else and we're just pontificating on. What you see in the Hormone Shift is very much the journey of thousands of women that we have had the gift and the opportunity to work with. And what we have done kind of systematically in the practice, and what we continue to do. I mean, every day I walk in there, I learn something. And I think it's just such an amazing place, because each of you have a story and each of you have something for the rest of us. But, every single day as we walk women through this process, they keep hearing the same things that I was told over 20 years ago when I had my own personal hormone journey at 28, 26 or so. And they're still told that, it's not important to check your hormones, that you're just getting old. There's nothing you can do about X, Y, or Z. These are the only options, meaning like maybe 2 or 3 options out of the entire toolbox that's out there. And I think that, as I keep hearing this over and over again, 15 years, different women, different places, it makes me more stubborn, honestly, to be like, we've got to have a resource. You've got to have a way to educate yourself. And so as the book has come out, you have to understand that it's based on patient experience. It's based on clinical experience. It's pulling from research. And it's also pulling from what is clinically relevant and what actually works. I've been using that line a lot because it's been interesting to see people pontificate about hormones and women's health, but they don't see patients, or to be locked into a certain aspect of women's health, right? Like you'll have the GYN community very locked in, or the endocrinology community very locked in, but they're not thinking about the patient as a whole. They're fixated on a couple of different organs or organ systems. But what we have to do in our practices, which are integrative practices, we see the whole family. We're merging together your gut health, your nutritional health, your hormone health, your emotions, your brain, all of it. We're having to look at all of it because the visits are extensive. We get to see how something like a hormone plays into the entire conversation around your health, and how something as simple as a hormone can really change the course of your life. And so for me, as the book is coming out and people are looking for a resource, this is a middle path. This is not locked into, MDs are right, NDs are wrong. This is not locked into all alternative medicine is great, never touch a medication or a hormone. This is very much exactly what I've been doing for the last 15 years with my team, which we've grown to over 12 providers with. This is the middle path. This is where you bring together the best of Eastern medicine, the best of Western medicine, functional medicine, whatever you guys want to call it, and you put it together, finding solutions that work for the person sitting in front of you. And so, the plan in the book does exactly that. It deals conceptually with the things that we've seen our patients struggle with. It creates a foundation for health and for hormone health and hormone chemistry. And it stresses the importance, which I'll continue to write about, to be 100% honest, because I don't think we talk about this enough. It stresses the importance of the continuum of a woman's journey, right? The arc of her health, how she moves from puberty to her early 20s, through her childbearing years, kind of the 30s, into perimenopause and then menopause, and how all that chemistry is intricately connected and related to one another. And if we're not building these foundations on top of one another, then we're setting women up shift after shift after shift for failure. failure. So you take the child that's gone into puberty, if they're not getting their answers, they're going to have a rough 20s. If they're not getting their answers, they're going to have trouble through their 30s, getting pregnant, having issues with periods and fibroids and all these other things. And then they walk into perimenopause, not even knowing sometimes that they're in perimenopause, and turning into a different version of themselves. And then they're in menopause. So I just wanted to stop the noise and insanity and be like, please read this, please understand what's happening, and pass it on to every woman you know.
Yes, and that's what we're trying to do, essentially.
Yes, absolutely.
Yes. Because it was interesting when I put out the word that we were talking, right? There's of course a large group of women who are considering themselves suffering in some form or another, which are perimenopausal, menopausal, postmenopausal,
Right.
where you hear all the thing, where you were told everything from, oh yeah, you're going to dry up and, sweat for years on end,
Right.
and, all of those kind of things, to, your bones are going. And if you don't take hormones, you're going to have a heart attack or a stroke. But if you do take hormones, you're going to get cancer.
Heart attack or stroke too.
So there's that whole field, and I do want to talk about that.
Right.
But before that, what I want to talk about is a little bit prevention of certain things or knowledge of certain things that would make that time easier. And also, there were quite a few questions of women who are going, well, I'm in my late 30s, I still want a child, or I'm just now getting to a point where I'm considering having a child. How do I keep myself healthy? How do I keep myself, or what do I need to know? So I think that beautiful arc that you're making in the book, which I just love so much. I'll name those 5 shifts in a moment because they're just so cool. But
fun with it.
but I think if I would have known personally, right, this is something I had to figure out the hard way during the pandemic. If I would have known personally in the earlier years of my career that taxing my adrenals was going to give me trouble in the perimenopausal, menopausal realm, because I don't have resource to pick up fluctuations,
right,
that would have been a game changer.
Mm-hmm.
Nobody ever explained that to me. People would say, well, you have your adrenals are fatigued. Well, no shit, Sherlock, right?
Right.
My house burned down, whatever, right? Yes, things happened, but nobody said, look, here is why that's important beyond the, oh, well, you're exhausted. So there is, I think, prevention or knowledge that comes early, then that sets us up for something a lot better. So you talk about the 5 things. I want to say those names because they're
go for it. Just say it. Put them out there. I know you want to do that. Go for it.
So you have these 5 shifts, which are age related, right?
Right.
So the shifts are called the rock star, the hustler, the superstar, the superwoman, and the commander.
Right.
And this, of course, coincides with the different phases between puberty and post-menopause. And I think, first of all, I love the names for the obvious reasons. Mm-hmm. But beyond that, I think being able to see how these things overlap and how setting yourself up at any age for the next phase is just really powerful. So I'm handing this back over to you.
Yes. So, and those names were deliberate, right? And I can give a little bit of background on those. So the rock stars, remember, are those teenagers, 13 to 19. And I literally envisioned them like a rock star, right? Like they think they've got it all. They think they don't have to listen to anyone and they don't know what the hell they're doing, right? So they totally and completely, mess themselves up to a certain extent. So it's our job, I think, as parents or sisters or whoever, to help them with some stability and help them understand even this early what their hormone health is looking like and all the factors that play. And we're going to get into those in just a second. And then the hustlers, I thought of myself. I mean, burning the candle at both ends, partying, studying, working, just how little sleep could I get by on was more of the mantra, right? And I was proud of it. We were all we wore it like a badge, like, oh my gosh, I'm a high energy person. I don't need X, Y, and Z. So we all hustled through our 20s, but guess what happens? You hit 28, I've noticed it in the practice too, 27, 28, 29, somewhere in there. And it's like, boom, you pay for it. And so progesterone levels drop, my PCOS showed up, my thyroid crashed. I see different versions of that in my patients. And, now you're trying to get pregnant maybe, or you're trying to start a family, or you're just trying to bust it in a career or whatever it is. And you feel miserable and you start to look differently too. And that can shake a woman's boat big time. Like, what's going on? I'm still young. Why is all this happening? And then those same women go into perimenopause completely unaware, and then go into menopause where there's complete decline of hormones. And instead of, remember, Eastern systems of medicine want us to evolve shift to shift. We are spiritually evolving, literally moving up the chakra ladder, right? That's how they thought about it. Like, each shift is a spiritual evolution. You're coming into alignment with yourself. You're kind of giving birth to yourself. So ideally, you're moving through these shifts and you're evolving up. And as a commander, that name was very purposeful. As a commander, you're stepping finally into your power, and you're going to lead. You're going to lead not only yourself, but you're going to lead the other women around you. You're going to lead the community, and you're going to re-gift them with all the knowledge and wisdom that you've accumulated over the years. So you're held up. But what I see happening with women as they talk to me is that they don't feel that, right? They feel small, they feel invisible, they feel expired, or they've accepted the narrative that they're old and nothing's relevant. And that's really what we want to change. There, in Eastern systems of medicine, you prepared for a shift. It was like you paid attention to this. You were educated about this. And so it meant paying attention to things like, what are you feeding yourself? What is the quality of your food, the nutrient quality of your food? And they had, each system had different ideas around that, but it was a very critical component of a woman's health and of her hormone journey. The second one was really, where's your gut health? The gut was the foundation of health. And so if you weren't paying attention to gut health through these shifts, then each shift was going to be more painful than the shift before. And we match that to science today. They were right. We know, for example, that the microbiome that lives in the gut is responsible for metabolizing hormones. If it's not working well, you can't metabolize estrogen. You can't have thyroid function that's optimal. You have cortisol and blood sugar levels that are all over the place. So they talked about gut health. They also talked about liver health. The liver was considered a part of the gut. And if you were taxing your liver, and we're going to talk about what taxing your liver means in just a minute, and you were clogging your liver, you would end up with this pattern of liver stasis where you couldn't move hormone through. So you would have estrogen dominance, you would have things like, high cortisol again. So for them, all of these things were very preventable. Moving on from that, though, taxing the liver was also caused by excessive emotional burden. Mm-hmm. So women, for example, that had trauma or repressed anger or hate, that was stored in the liver. So that emotional burden, right, in turn made it difficult for the liver to do what it was supposed to do with hormones. And unfortunately, again, the book I think really needs to be dedicated to all the women that have come through the practice and have taught me all of this. But I've sat with so many women in deep, deep trauma, right? So many. And some of them going through really tough divorces or a loss. And unfortunately, if they don't listen, I can literally clock and I can know that if they are not doing the emotional work that they need to do to release this, and if they're not over nurturing themselves, 18 months, I'll be dealing with something. I'll be dealing with an autoimmune disease. I'll be dealing with a new cancer diagnosis. I'll be dealing with something with them. And so I'm kind of desperate to not scare them, but at the same time, be like, we've got to deal with this emotional piece, the elephant in the room. We have to deal with it. So these are the things that they really stressed and paid a lot of importance to, and thought that when you were doing these things, then shift to shift to shift, you would move up instead of being crippled by it or feeling like, I wish I was 20 again, or I wish I was 30 again. None of us should be feeling that or wishing that, so that's the part that I have spent a lot of time and energy on in the book, along with the emotional component and the mind-body component, because I feel like that's something we all can do at any age. And that lays the foundation for your next set of decisions, which is, do you need a hormone? Do you not need a hormone? All that, it should be a second decision. This stuff comes first.
Yeah. I mean, yes, and yes. And that's the thing that when I got my sticky paws on the book, right, I was so happy about, because, of course, in my work with nonlinear movement, which is a somatic release modality,
Yeah.
That is one of the things that people report, is that even though it's such a simple movement, right, it has these knock-on effects. We're actually about to start a study on this, a clinical study, where people report not only better sleep, but also, a drop in general stress, but specifically a drop in cortisol and stress hormones and things like that as they release things. Because of course in Chinese medicine, liver time, right, that thing when you wake up in the middle of the night angry and hot, right, does very much feel like a night sweat, right, or a night sweat.
Even like just thinking about your work, like the emotional component of the pelvic floor, right?
Exactly.
I mean, if there's anger and if there's a lack of stability or fear, like a lot of that locks up the pelvic floor.
Exactly. Yeah. And I just taught a nonlinear teacher training last weekend, and I was saying, while we now look at the solar plexus and the gut, right, and also not so much the liver yet, but solar plexus and gut, most people are aware of nowadays. The final frontiers in my work is the pelvic floor, and I think the liver falls in the final frontier area as well, in the context of people don't understand that it's not just what you eat or drink or the alcohol you have, but or the sitting in a chair that's not good for you, but that those layers of experience in the pelvic floor really hold so much emotional stuff that then in turn decreases the tension, decreases the circulation, and the exchange of fluids and all of those things. So to make that the first port of call, and hormone replacement or medication or whatever, the secondary thing, feels like a huge relief in the context of what you're talking about.
Definitely. And I think, again, it's actionable, right? It's actually, you don't need anybody. You don't need a doctor. You don't need anybody for these first steps, right? People feel paralyzed by their experience in the exam room or by the fact that it's medical knowledge. But I think this first journey is very much you getting to know you and having a conversation with your body and just the information at hand to really begin to understand this stuff, and so I'm super excited for everybody to learn more. And also, like you said earlier, just have something that we didn't have. Like if I had read this book at 20 or 25, like sure, my life went on in a beautiful direction, but the angst and the misery and the lack of self-esteem and the lack of self-confidence that came for a period of time, like I probably could have diverted all of that, right? So I think that, for all women watching, I don't care how old you are, this information is critical because this is foundational information for your hormones, for your health, but also, like, not to be too out there, but also literally for your vibration, what you will bring into your life, what you will attract, and the series of decisions that you'll make thereafter.
Yeah, I could not agree more. And like you said, I mean, if I would have understood some of the things that I now am learning, right, I could have also be a better advocate for myself in medical situations. Because I had several instances where people said, oh, you should get your hormones checked. And in my 30s, mid-30s, and then again in my 40s when perimenopause kicked in. And every time I had an just abysmal experience based on the fact that I wasn't educated, because where would I have been educated? Right. So I couldn't actually advocate for myself. And then in the aftermath of having had a bad experience, I learned things, right? So I think that I can't say enough about the approach of not only education in what you're delivering there, but also stressing the importance of education being empowerment. You know, when you say, okay, I can do these things for myself, and then from a more optimized place within myself and some understanding of my own body, I can go and get the rest of it with whatever that means.
Definitely. And I think, knowledge is power. We already know that, but your health is a superpower, right? Your hormones are a superpower. So when you have things lined out, you feel incredible, right? And you're able to really be present in your relationships and your work and, whatever else you're doing. I think when you don't, I talk about it. I've seen it, happen in our home, and I've seen it happen with patients. You kind of go dark. It's like someone takes the lights out, right? And then you don't do the things you're supposed to do. So, I think that we talk about women's empowerment, we talk about, uplifting women, and we talk about it in these very different ways, all of which have a place in the conversation, but we never talk about it in light of chemistry.
Yeah.
And that there's chemistry to empowerment, right? And that we need to be thinking about that. So before we can go like, I don't know, climb a mountain or do whatever else, you have to have the raw materials, So, I mean, that's sort of the way I like to think about it.
Yeah. Yeah. And chemistry is everything. That knows everyone who's ever had really bad PMS, right?
Yes, right. And then even I don't know if we talked about this or not, but I've been talking about it some, the whole swing of relationships, right? That with the hormone shifts, there are shifts in oxytocin, which is the bonding hormone, right? That's how you feel happy about your partner, or you're able to connect with your partner. And with these shifts, if you think about it, like when cortisol goes up, oxytocin goes down. So when we're in a stress state, we can't bond. When hormones decline, like estrogen and progesterone and testosterone, not only does our libido go down, but at the same time, our oxytocin goes down, but serotonin goes away too. So we're anxious and incapable of bonding and have no libido, So it's impacting the dynamic between who's in our, orbit, so to speak, because all of a sudden, we're looking at them, we're like, I don't like them anymore. But do you really not like them anymore?
Right.
Or is it the chemistry not making you like
Right.
them anymore,
Right.
So.
Right. And I think, thank you for saying that, because I see this a lot in my work, and it's often so interesting because when when you've been around your own hormones long enough, you might get a glimpse that what you're feeling about your partner at any given day might have something to do,
Right.
might have something to do with how you see them. But
right.
For myself, and I see this in a lot of people I've worked with, right? I mean, it's only now, towards the very, very, very end of me having cycles, that I can go, I am like in this, I hate my life, everything's bad, I need to chocolate and weep, and I'm gonna run away with the circus, right? Only now can I go, I know what that is. But I would say for at least 25 years, every time when then I would start bleeding, I'd be like,
exactly.
Right, because that's the nature of hormones, and this is true in relationship. So with all of that said, would you mind, for everyone listening live, and then we'll make a podcast out of this, kind of the cornerstones of what there is to know, without giving the entire book away, of course, but just the few bits and pieces to consider when people start kind of educating themselves, and when people come to your book with, what is this about?
Yeah. So the first thing we do is really work on food, right? Food is ultimately your power source and your nutrient source. So there's a lot about foods, a lot about ways to, stock your kitchen, because I know all of us are busy and running around. We don't want to make food complicated or restrictive. We just want to make it smart. So foods that work for your hormones, things you need to be thinking about. So there's a whole section around that. There's a section on gut health, like how to balance your gut. how to get your gut to behave effectively, things that women are missing frequently. I think many women today don't realize that cholesterol is the building block of all hormones. So if they're malabsorbing fat, not getting fat in, not digesting fat, then we see the hormone crash or the depletion much sooner than we'd like to. Then really doing an inventory on your toxic load. The environment today is not the same as even 30 or 40 years ago. We have an incredible bombardment of toxins in our environment. I mean, I say that, it sounds very cliche, but it's true. I get to see it in the exam room. I can literally test for these things now. You can find levels of glyphosate, you can find levels of BPA, and the numbers are just getting higher and higher. So we know we're all walking around with this stuff. So we have to be a little bit more deliberate then on cleaning out the liver, just like you would clean the filter on your dryer. Like we've got to clean out the liver periodically to help manage the load that we're all getting exposed to. And then there's an exercise in there to really question yourselves emotionally. Where is your vibration and your emotional frequency? Like the goal is to be kind of neutral or even, and then the highest emotion being joy or love, the lowest being hate or anger. Where are you? And when I look at that again, in editing and proofing the book, and I was thinking, like, in my 20s and 30s, I sat in the more negative emotions for whatever reason, right? Fear, anger, worry, impatience, all of those things contributes to making you not well. And then we move from there into a plan, a true plan, like a 30-day reset, where you work week by week on each of these concepts. And really, hopefully, I'm able, and it's in week 3 of the plan, we're able to help you identify your dominant hormone pattern. So the plan is similar for the first few weeks, and then it splits so that there's a little bit more customization there, and you can start to understand that, oh, okay, this is my main pattern, therefore this is what I need to do for it. And then we come back together to really work on the mind-body connection there. So, that's the course of what you'll see. But in addition to that, and just the knowledge of all of that and the tools there, I mean, I talk about labs, I talk about ranges for labs, I talk about optimal ranges, how to check them, all these things, all these debates that we're having out there that honestly, at first I'm tolerant, but then I just get annoyed. Like, why are we making this so difficult? This doesn't need to be this hard, but here are some ideas about where your labs need to be based on everyone we've seen. Everyone's normal is their own. The current normals are set for the average. The average was determined a long time ago by men, just trying to keep women away from being diseased, right? So those normals aren't really normal. So, we've set some guidelines there, but if you're tracking and trending your numbers, then you'll be able to understand, where you feel amazing and great and where a number's off. And I can just give you, like, even for me, my thyroid is normal, lab to lab to lab to lab. But just 6 or 7 months ago, I was noticing my hair again was getting like that crackly, the sandpapery crackly thing. And I'm like, that's weird. What's going on? I checked everything. Even though it's normal, it was a change from my previous, right? So my thyroid had gone off again. So once I corrected it, I'm back and it's not doing that anymore. So this is the way you can start to, again, have a conversation with yourself. So all those tools are in there. Some women don't even realize how powerful hormones are. So there's a hormone symptom checklist to help you understand that bloating is a hormone system, right? Brain fog is a hormone symptom as well. So there's so many, joint pain can be a hormone symptom. So ligament tears, ligament damage, I ruptured my Achilles about almost a year ago. I've recovered, but not just me, so many women come in with like rotator cuff, knee, this, that, all this stuff. There's a hormone story to that. So really dialing into all of that is what I hope each of you will get out of it, and then keep coming back to it, because it is a lot of information. It may be that you do this part of it right now and you come back to it again. And then when you feel like you're shifting again, you look at it again.
There were a few other things that really I wanted to flag, and then maybe we'll open it up to some questions.
Sure. Yeah.
But one of the things when we sat next to each other at a dinner, right?
Yeah.
And I was saying to you something like, or actually wasn't at the dinner, it was at this other thing. But
Yeah.
I was saying I have tried bioidentical hormones at some point, and I had an absolutely hellish time with progesterone, and I stopped and never again touched it. after that, because it was so hellish. And you said very casually, well, it's probably just your liver, right? Like, and then like, and I was like, really? Nobody had ever said to me, oh, maybe you're just not metabolizing. It was always just like, I always heard, because I had some very extreme, like almost autoimmune response where I got like these weird rashes before my period.
Yeah.
And there would people would say to me, well, you just are very sensitive to progesterone. There's nothing you can do, right? And just live with it. But nobody ever said, well, maybe you want to clean out your liver. And that was such a epiphany around, something that's so obvious once you said it, but it never occurred to me. Nobody ever explained it to me. And while I live a fairly clean life, of course, I'm on the road. And when I'm on the road, my life is not quite that clean. And never mind eating out. But there's, of course, alcohol and travel and bad
stuff.
fun stuff. Exactly. And I think I wanted you to talk a little bit about that. What does it mean to look at the liver and the toxic load on the liver, and also how that then connects with other aspects from a place not of, denying oneself everything, but from a place of finding an understanding of one's system. So, which is something I'm personally in all my teaching very big on, is it's not about never doing these things or never ever again, but having tools so that you are actually at cause over things happening.
No, and I, the longer I've done this, the more I want to park in this sort of middle space, because life is life and we all have to live it, right? And when we talked about the continuum of being a woman, or the arc of a woman's journey, that journey has highs and lows, and it has challenges and stressors and joy and all that other stuff. And so we don't want to be married to anything rigid or perfectionist, which, unfortunately, many of us end up falling into. What we really want to understand, though, is what is a baseline place for each of us, and where can we not wander too far? Like, I can tell you mine, got to take my thyroid. I have to be gluten-free. I have to eat consistently and get protein in. If I overdo carbs, sugar, alcohol, anything else, eat gluten, I'm a different person. I don't even have the energy to do this. So those are my non-negotiables, right? What are your non-negotiables? That's really the journey that you need to be asking yourself as you read the book and hopefully get additional information. What are like the 3 things you should be able to spit them back to me? I tell my patients this: you should be able, by the end of our journey, we have about 4 or 5 visits that it takes to get here, but I go, by the end of this, you should be able to spit this right back to me, so that the majority of your life, you have to live in this space. You're going to celebrate, you're going to have something that throws you off track. That's okay. But going back to your story about not tolerating hormones, and what I said probably flippantly to you, but the gut and the liver are very much involved in hormone metabolism, but they're actually controlled to a certain extent, by genetics. And so we know that there's some genes, and someone on my Instagram commented today, which is so frustrating, but we know there's certain genes that make the liver more sluggish. MTHFR is one of them, for example. And this woman pointed out, and I didn't realize it, but when you do like a 23andMe, it says like MTHFR clinically has no relevance, which couldn't be further from the truth. I am able to track like how patients have liver meridian issues, have MTHFR, you put that together. If I give them a lot of hormone, they're not going to do well. So I have to do these baby doses of hormones to get them comfortable, or I have to rely more on herbal remedies or natural remedies. A non-MTHFR person could probably tolerate a standardized dose of hormones. So these are the personalization of our hormone therapy that we have to do. And the medical system is not equipped right now to get to that level of personalization. So the burden does fall back on us to get this information, be able to put these things together, for sure. So, I mean, I would say that, the liver is a big piece of the story, and different people have different levels of tolerance, right? Or different amounts of sort of baggage that they carry in the liver. And again, I think we have to figure that part out for ourselves.
those non-negotiables are really, I think, an important piece. Because for me, for instance, one of the absolute non-negotiables is circadian rhythm, like getting sunlight first thing in the morning.
Yeah.
And then
My
getting,
husband's like that. He cannot, you cannot throw him off his sleep, you know. So that's a non-negotiable for him.
It's a non-negotiable for me because I mean, everything goes off if I don't get sunlight and sleep, right? Sunlight and sleep. Those are two of my three. But for other people, that's not so big of a deal. For for them, it's other things. So I think the knowledge that it's personal and you can find out what it is really useful. Yeah. Okay. Let's see what we have here on the question.
Fun. I love this
department and see what there is. How can we differentiate a hormone issue versus depression? I think that's a good one. The other one that I really like is because I've heard so much about people talking about it, ringing in the ears can be hormonal. So those are two things I'm going to just throw at you. And I see some people have raised their hands, so we'll get to them as well.
Yeah, let's talk about depression for a second. So hormone versus depression, it's probably an and, not a versus, right? So there are some people that might be wired to a lower emotional state, right? If you've always been there, here's what a hormone shift does. It makes it worse. When progesterone goes down, when estrogen goes down, we know for a fact that women experience much more depression. So I wouldn't say it's it's not a one or the other. It's usually multifactorial. How do you manage that? Well, get your hormones checked and see if you've had a big shift from where you were. If you've had a sudden decline in levels of those hormones, that is going to explain it to a point. It doesn't mean you go straight to HRT, right? It means that we do some of the other work, the B vitamins, the protein, getting healthy fats in, all of these things support the decline in hormones. Now, on the other hand, if you do that work and the depression's not lifting, or if the depression is so severe that it's making you not participate in your life, well, that depression has to be managed while you're looking at these other factors, right? So, we never want somebody to be absent from their life or to feel like they can't be involved. So I think that sometimes, and we do a lot of this in practice, it's a twofold situation where we're medicating or band-aiding an active symptom because a person is just in such a bad place, but we're doing this other work over here to build somebody back up, whether it's hormonal or nutritional or gut work. And at some point, then we're able to take the medication part back down and see where the patient lands, right? So that's very much an art. But to answer the question, I wouldn't think of them separately. I would think of them as connected, because so many women lose their hormones and go into a deep depression. In fact, I have patients that have had to keep on hormones into their 60s and even as they enter 70, because if I take it away, they go back into this very deep, dark depression and their family begs me for it. So, so I think you have to think of them together. The other question was, I've already lost it.
Ringing the ears.
Oh, ringing in the ears. Okay. So ringing
in the live questions for those.
Yes. Okay. So let's talk about ringing in the ears. One of the things that happens with a hormone drop is you start to get tightness through here. And if you guys just feel right in your jaw, if it feels crunchy and crackly, or if it's popping as you open and close, it's clamping down on the nerve that goes to your ear. So many women get ringing in the ears simply because of low progesterone, because now there's more inflammation through this whole area. It's tightening up the jaw, it's causing pressure here. That's one reason. The second reason is that simply with the hormone drop, both in estrogen and progesterone, there is just more ringing in the ears. We don't know the exact sort of physiology behind it, but we do see that as a correlation frequently. The solution, you could do low-grade hormone replacement therapy, but we do a lot of like magnesium, acupuncture, those type of things to kind of soften everything up and increase some of the laxity through here so it's not so tight. And many of our patients get relief that way.
That's really good to know.
I've had it where it's just like,
I have bouts of that too.
Yeah, I've had it
off a plane, my ears are ringing because I hate flying, but that's a different story. Okay, I'm gonna take a few live questions, and there's so many good questions, but let's start with Libby. Hi, Libby. Libby is in Australia, all the way from
Oh my
Australia.
goodness. Hello.
Hi, Dr. Taz. Hi,
Yes.
Michaela. I'm loving this so much. Thank you so much. And I can't wait to buy your book.
Thank
I'm sure
you.
it's available somewhere in Australia. I'll find it. So
Book
I'm a bit
deposit.
complicated. I've got endocrine issues everywhere. I'm a cancer survivor. That's the main thing.
Mm,
And the main thing that's affecting me at the moment is adrenal insufficiency.
mhm.
So I've had them knocked out by major steroids. And I was just wondering if you have any tips on how to wean yourself off steroids and how to help the adrenals come back online. I'm sure I had adrenal fatigue, in my 20s, just
Before.
listening to you. I'm sure I've got a long pattern of burnout but the cancer and the steroids have really knocked me around. So
Yeah. So you would be in a state of depletion if we use the Chinese medicine lens on you. And what they would do for someone in a state of depletion is just systematically build you back up. So it would be rehabbing your gut health, adding in protein and nutrients, making sure your blood sugar is incredibly stable and not allowing too much fluctuation or variation there. And then flipping to my medical hat, right, or the conventional medicine world, I would be curious if your thyroid's been optimized, because that usually gets crashed with the
it has. I've also got Hashimoto's and
there we go.
PCOS
All of
and
that.
menopause, like the
Oh my
chemo
gosh.
threw me into instant menopause. So I'm just a mess.
So I would optimize your thyroid. I would try anti-inflammatories. So things like CBD, or we use something called low-dose naltrexone a lot in practice. And that it acts like a prednisone, but without the side effect profile of a prednisone.
Okay.
And it enables us to get prednisone doses down and help the body, because your first goal is really to get the inflammation gone. If the inflammation can go away, then your body can get back to homeostasis and kind of get into more of a balanced state. And then the cortisol production will resume and you'll get back on track. So you could follow actually the plan in the book. I think that would be the only caveat there is like the book doesn't talk about LDN and all those things. Those are probably a little bit more personal, but like maybe start with the plan in the book, because it does build the gut. It does give you a nutrient list. It does talk about blood sugar and its role in all of this. So that might be a starting point, but I feel like you're going to need like LDN, thyroid, maybe something for blood sugar stability, something for helping you with progesterone and helping you with the depletion of the estrogen too. So that's probably where you have to move towards.
Yeah. Thank you so much.
You're
I'm getting the
welcome.
book.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Now, it's probably also worth saying, Taz, I don't know, you'll get so busy now, probably, but you do remote
Yes.
appointments,
Yes.
right? So for somebody like Libby, it's probably a bit difficult for you to get the blood tests, but you could advise her on where to get blood tests in Australia, for instance, right? And then look at those things.
Definitely. So there are multiple ways to get blood tests. I think everyone gets super frustrated by this. There are partner labs in Europe and in Australia. So we are working on those relationships. So it's very easy for you to independently get labs without having to, necessarily go through the whole, like my doctor has to order it, that whole business. There are a lot of home and self-pay labs that you can do too, that are not crazy expensive, but at least still a way to track. So in the practice, we have some. On my website, we have some. So there are other ways of getting around this, but because the book is getting picked up internationally, we're actively looking for partner labs so that women have a place to go and just get these things done. And we do, by the way, if you do want to be a patient, yes, we have a whole remote team. We have an in-office team if you want to come to Atlanta and see us here. And then I'll be traveling and opening up spots probably in New York and LA in 2024 for sure.
I'm all for the LA one.
I want to be there. I probably want to be close to you, close to Ojai.
That's what I'm hoping for.
I know.
But I want to just say this because some people miss the beginning. Yes, the book addresses everything from the beginning of puberty till the postmenopausal aspects. So it's not just menopause or, those kind of things. Annette, and then Tanya, and then we're probably going to run out of time, but
Oh man.
Hello, thank you
Hi.
ladies so much. Okay, so here's my dump. So I've been battling SIBO in my gut. And I've been battling it for a while. I have it pretty much down. I had the LCAT done years back to see what my food sensitivities were, learned a lot there. Had a lot of loss and grief the last couple of years and a lot of stress. Anyway, but where I'm at now, since I'm 52 and I'm stepping into the menopause era, but I can still apparently have babies. And I was like, oh, fuck. Anyway, just to say, sorry, everybody, for the F-bomb. But I was like, whoo, that would be the surprise. Anyway, what I'm really grateful for right now, too, is learning about the liver and how connected this is. So my question is, because of the SIBO, I exercise regularly, I'm fit, I eat really well, healthy, I prepare my own stuff. So for the most part, unless I'm traveling, obviously. But what I'm really noticing is that as I'm learning and I'm recognizing that my gut is what's responsible for my skin exploding along with possibly my hormones. And I'm realizing this now as I've gone through every skin, purchase and holistic, whatever, and my skin is just blowing up like a teenager. And so I'm realizing that something's off, and I'm wondering if a liver cleanse would be connected to maybe even working with my gut as well. Is that like the cycle? Like, I've never done a liver cleanse. So I'm thinking, well, maybe that's the thing, that's where everything's kind of clogged. But in listening to you and hearing what this is.
When your skin's blowing up, you're getting acne. Is that what you're saying?
Oh, yes. Like cystic, like this. I mean, I might as well be 13.
So this is an important pattern, and I write about it in the book. So one of the menopause patterns is shifting towards androgen dominance, which is high DHT, high testosterone, high free testosterone, high AMH, all of those things. You get the jawline acne, you get the scalp hair loss, the body, more of the body hair, right? That's a menopause pattern. That's one of 3 different patterns. So a liver cleanse will absolutely help. It'll down regulate these hormones. These are dirty hormones is what I call them. So it'll help, but it won't be instant. It takes a while for these hormones to for those levels to come down. A lot of times I'll put somebody like you on saw palmetto, which is an herb that blocks androgens, and choline, which helps the liver, and then some sort of blood sugar stability as well. And if that's not working, I'll move on to a medication. But you are on track with thinking about the liver. The only thing I would question a little bit is, are you sure you just have SIBO and you're not flip-flopping between SIBO and Candida? Because Candida and androgens and insulin live together happily. So that would be the thing. And a lot of patients have flip-flop, and the flip-flop is from fat malabsorption, which is your body's not absorbing fat, not breaking fat down very well. So the gut microbiome can't be stable. It just keeps, like, you eat probably perfectly for it. It's good for a little bit, and then it slides back into a different pattern. So that could be happening as well. But that's like
it sounds like you're talking about my gut.
It sounds like a 30-second like download, but that's sort of what I've seen in practice, and kind of the patterns that I've seen go together.
Okay. Well, I did order your book, and I do have it on Audible as well. So I'm going to be diving into this as a study, so
Absolutely. Yes, the book
thank
is
you so much.
Yes,
it is. So I have both until my book gets here. But the Candida, thank you for that, because I have not had that, but I'm sort of did have the bad taste in my mouth around Western medicine and switched to, the naturopathic kind of way, but that is still a challenge. So thank you so much.
You're welcome. Very welcome.
Thank you. I was going to say, one of the things that we wanted to do is we wanted to, for the people who showed up live, and now they're all called Casey Carey, so we're going to have to do this a bit different, but we were going to do 2 giveaways where in each of the giveaways you get the Hormone Shift, you get the Wild Woman's Way, and you're getting, I should show this to you because they arrived this morning. And Taz and I have been talking about this. You're getting one of these before they get sent out, which is the 55 Flavors Oracle deck.
Oh.
So we're going to do 2 packages. But now that everybody's called Casey Carey, what I'm going to say is I'm going to, if you email the office at workshops@michaelaboehm.com, the first 2 people emailing will get the card. So put your address in their card, book, and Wild Woman's Way. So that's what we're going to do, regardless of where you are in the world, by the way, because I have a very international crowd. So I have had to send things to remote corners of the world.
Amazing. That's amazing.
All right. Well, it's always fun getting gifts, isn't it? So I think we're pretty much done because it is the full hour. I can't thank you enough.
Thank you.
Of you taking the time, of you talking about these things, of you writing the book and providing such an amazing resource. And I'm sure we'll talk again about stuff.
I'm sure. And thank you for inviting me into your beautiful community. Thank you guys. I appreciate it.
Thank you. All right, everybody. Thank you very much. We'll send this out as well, of course. And we'll probably also put this, not probably, we will make this into a podcast. And then there will be all the links to the book, to the things. I'm getting shitloads of emails in here now.
Awesome. Wonderful. Take care. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye.